Hello and welcome. I hate to tell you, it's another episode of the Triple B podcast or GameCast. Let's call it the GameCast, like, you know, the actual title of it with a capital C in it because we're so cool and we're so edgy.
If we were cool, we'd use K's instead of C's.
Ooh, maybe not because that could get kind of close to something else.
Oh, you know what? I redact that. Never mind. Continue.
Triple
Just
B
kidding.
Triple B GameCast. With me, so I am Bowertendo. Hello, if you're listening. Welcome, if you're watching. There's your wave. I'm Bowertendo. With me is, I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. We have below me, down there, Scott Stevens, or SM Stevens Streams, eventually. And by the airing of this podcast, he would have played his new favorite game of all time, and Trios came back just in time. Some good old fart night.
I'm excited. In my Discord channel, Wing, who's one of my followers and buds online, just said Trios is coming back. My immediate response in all caps was, "What? When?" And then like he and Chrome chimed in, and apparently it's like live right now, like as we were speaking. So that means when we do stream this, eventually we get to stream it. By this time, it would have aired wherever we put it. But we do get to do our trios now, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Scott's going to be indoctrinated into the cult of Fart Night.
And we got to stick with it for a couple weeks because he's going to, even if he loves it, he's going to tell us that he hates it. He's going to act like he hates it. He's going to say that he hates it. But we'll know.
You can bring it up. I promised one game of Fart Night. Nothing more. And these guys are like, yeah, so the second and third game, blah, blah, blah is going to join us. Then we're going to do this. It's like, one game. That's all I promise you guys.
No, you didn't. You did not specify one game. You said, I will play Fortnite. So, you know what we'll do then? We'll be fair to you. We'll just stream for like 7 hours. And we're just going to play Fortnite for like 7 hours. Okay,
that's fair.
That
works.
Okay, so we got SM Stevens Streams, a new Fortnite streamer. And we got Celiac_Matt over here. So, that being said, what are you guys drinking tonight?
I was planning to drink a rum and Coke, but I forgot that I told my wife that I'm trying to make bigger gaps between when I drink. Just, you know, I don't think it's healthy to drink every single day.
Health reasons.
And I told her that I'll be having a rum and Coke on Thursday when I stream this game that was gifted to me by Chrome called King of the Castle, which is a Twitch integrated game. And then she's like, I thought you said I was about to make her drink tonight. And she goes, I thought you said you were going to wait till Thursday. And I was like about to pour the rum. I'm like, I did say that. I'll put this down. I'm having a Coke, just a Coke, no rum.
Coke minus run. All right. Scott, what are you drinking?
I am drinking the cool, crisp, delicious Health Aid Pink Lady Apple flavor.
Didn't even know what flavor it was.
You had to look at his bottle.
It's the tasty flavor. That's what I call it.
All right.
Oh, yes. One tasty flavor, please. What is your tasty flavor over there, Mike?
So my tasty, so I'm like the opposite of last week because I had a really good day today. So I was like, you know what? And I'm having an old-fashioned, which is bourbon demerara syrup that I made myself and some other things. So good stuff. I thought I was gonna have a little drinking buddy tonight when you were like, I'm gonna have rum and Coke, and I went, I'm gonna have an old-fashioned.
Sorry, I was a bad influence on you, sir.
He ditched me. It's okay. We all do that to each other. So, what are we playing outside of Zelda?
Yeah,
that's just like the base from now on. Moving
about forward. Zelda though, real quick, like before we started streaming, you guys were talking about like how many hours you got. Oh, we guys have kind of played the same. You guys are both at like 95 hours, and I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm at like 30. I'm like at 30 or 35. I'm falling behind on that one. But to answer the question, I'm always playing a bunch of different games, mainly because of streaming. But the one I want to highlight on, just because I had a really cool moment in the game, was on Tuesdays. I'm streaming Persona 5. And without giving spoilers, I just completed the Casino Palace, which is where the narrative just blasts off to the moon with some really cool stuff. So the stream was literally just basically narrative. I'm just watching everything, going like, what? That's so cool. Wait, no, I hate that person. What? So cool. It was awesome. So I've been playing Persona 5 and we just had a really cool moment and I'm vibing with it. It's been good.
So I knew you would love that. And I
Yeah.
knew you were going to be like, well, you're basically just going to put the controller down for like your 2 hours of streaming.
For my 3 hours, yes, it was done. I mean, with Twitch, you start chatting, so it's even slower. But yeah, it was 3 hours of just plot at that point. So we just all watched a movie, essentially, is what happened. But it was great. I'm having a good time.
Yep. And now you know. Now you know. Well, there's still more to know, but now you know. Scott, what you playing?
Well, hence Matt talking about the great race between me and Mike trying to reach 100 hours in Zelda. That's basically consumed my life last couple weeks. Although, sadly, me and Zelda, we're going to have to go and take some time apart. Well, we still deeply care about each other. Just, we need to go and take a little space because a certain little game is coming out 2 days from now of the Diablo variety. That's right, Diablo 4. I have that pre-ordered. I am one of the foolish people that dropped $100 on the Uber Mega Deluxe version that, if you read through the content list, is actually not worth it. I've been buying all of the crappy KFC fried chicken sandwiches to get all of the KFC cosmetics. I'm going all in on this game. So very excited for that on Friday. So
you're all in on the chicken, which is now running all out of you.
That's
Okay.
why, again, there we go. I think ahead.
And there's the mandatory poop talk. So Cube keeps
There we
following
go.
the channel.
Oh, I don't think
You
we
got it out of
told
the
you
way.
that, Scott. That Cube specifically was like, I love it that you guys talk about poop every episode. And then I was like, the next episode, because we actually don't. And he's like, don't tell me. And I'm like,
Oh no, we broke his heart. We broke his cube little heart. So all right, Scott's just playing Zelda in preparation, I guess, now for Diablo, and is eating subpar chicken sandwiches to do so.
and pooping.
Nice.
And
And
pooping
yes.
over the moon.
Well,
the go-to there.
Can't that be said for everybody though? Like,
yeah, it's true.
It wasn't for me before I got the celiac diagnosis. I'll tell you that. It sucked. Hey, Mike, what are you playing?
So I'm kind of like I am probably 98% Zelda, to be completely honest. The other 2% is still Advance Wars, because I really wish they didn't wait to release that. I really wish, because it's a good game. I loved them back on the Advance. I love what they did with this remake, and they just like, I don't have a draw to it right now because Zelda's just like grabbing my face and saying, "Don't ever grow up. Don't ever grow up." And I'm like, "Okay, I won't." So, I mean, that's basically what I'm playing. I do play, streaming games of Fortnites and, Splatoons and things like that. So, Splatoon 3 did actually just get an update. It's live right now, so I'll probably play a little bit of that tonight. So, why not?
I'm gonna try to play that on my lunch break, and I'll likely do a stream this weekend of just Splatoon. I've also officially decided to not retire, but sunset for now my Overwatch streams, because what I do on Mondays is I play Overwatch 1 week and then Splatoon the other, and now I'm just like, we're just gonna do Splatoon. We're just gonna do Splatoon. I've gotten much more engagement, a lot more people playing. I've actually enjoyed it more from a streaming element, and I play Overwatch a lot on my own without it. So I'm officially sunsetting for now Overwatch, and I'm going to be Splatoon every Monday moving forward for a little while. It's so good. I know Scott's never played a Splatoon game, but
It's
they
really
are a
good.
blast.
Even
I
if you
played
don't like
Splatoon 1.
shooters.
I played Splatoon 1 and I bought 2 and didn't ever play it, and now it's
So then
obsolete
3's going to
by
be
3.
perfect for you, dude, because it takes like some of the best things of 1 and 2 and like combines it. It's actually really good, especially now, the state of it now. It's great. But yeah, I kind of feel like I've lost all desire to play Overwatch 2, because maybe it's just a me thing. They really rubbed me the wrong way when they were just like, by the way, that thing, the whole reason we moved to Overwatch 2, nah, but we're still going to keep the trees, but you got to pay for those. Like, you guys,
The
what?
funny thing about that is the timing of it is literally we recorded, as our longtime dedicated listeners may know, the last episode I actually talked about Overwatch's 2's P versus E and how excited I was. We recorded that obviously before they announced that
It
they
was
were
literally
dropping.
a day or two before
I
they
thought
Yeah,
that
P
announced
was
it.
versus
so
E.
funny.
And so when I reheard that podcast this past Monday, it's just like, oh man, feels like salt in the wounds doing that. And to make me even more salty is Blizzard has a habit of like doing terrible things right before a new game comes out that I want to get from them. So I forget what happened when Diablo 2 Remaster is about ready to happen. I think it was all the sexual harassment and like really bad stuff about them coming to light. And I was like, okay, yeah, that killed Diablo 2 for me. I'm canceling that. But Microsoft actually charges you for the pre-order 2 weeks before the game comes out, and you can't go and get a refund. And literally that night they went and charged it. I'm like, oh well, I guess I can't do that. I
Two
was sort of,
weeks?
yeah,
Not
2
even
weeks.
Nintendo does that.
And I was sort of thinking about doing that for Diablo 4. I'm still very excited, but there is still that part of me. It's like, all right, like Blizzard totally fucked us over on Overwatch 2. I enjoyed the beta I played of Diablo, but I just don't have faith anymore, confidence in Blizzard. Maybe I should cancel Diablo 4. And literally that same exact night, 2 weeks before Diablo came out, boom, there's your $100 out of your account. So twice they got me. All thanks to Microsoft and charging 2 weeks ahead of time. But
Thanks,
I'm
Blizzard and
scared.
Microsoft. Thanks a lot.
I'm hopeful, but also very scared. So we'll
I
see.
hope it's
think-
good for you. Like I'm not opposed to the game. Like if it comes out and it's good, I love Diablo 3. I mean, you know that. I have multiple versions of that game, but I hope it's good for that's like coming to me and being like, Bauer, I really hope the next Xenoblade Chronicles game is good for you. I don't care about it, but I hope it's good for you, right? I feel the same way about Diablo 4 for you, where I'm like, I hope it's good for you, man, because you're so hyped about this game.
I'll never believe in anything again as long as I live if Diablo 4 is a disappointment.
I mean, you played the demo, and if you enjoyed the demo, I'm sure you dig the main game.
You'll find
I'm more
something.
curious about. I think the thing that's going to be the biggest pain when that launches is going to be how it's basically always online, and their servers are going to be like it's like a single player game that you can't play if their servers are going down. And I know they did like 3 or 4 different demos to probably really do a stress test. We'll see what happens, but anyway, I'm sure we can actually do a whole podcast about Diablo and Blizzard and things like that. And we actually kind of talked about a somewhat similar subject earlier, future podcast, I assume. But hey, Splatoon 3 though, Mike, to go back to the game you're playing, I love me some Splatoon. It's
great.
taken over for my Mondays for sure.
That's good to hear.
For sure. Yeah.
So those are all great games. And it's kind of following up with, the great villains that we talked about in our last episodes, right? The A tier, the S tier villains, all good stuff. Well, today, screw all that. We're talking about the shitty villains. We're talking about the D tier and the F tier. And we are here to just piss people off and rant about how awful these villains are. That's one of these episodes. So if it ain't your jam, sorry. But this is going to be what it is. And I'm going to start us off tonight.
Let's go.
Because we ended with the best gaming villain in all of our opinions, Handsome Jack. And as I was editing this past week and I was finding things for it and clips and all that, I was just like, man, he really is just awful, but so awesome, but awful. And just listening to all of them, the elusive man, we got like just everything. I'm like, man, these were so great. And then to completely juxtapose Handsome Jack, Borderlands 3. When Borderlands 3 was announced, I'm pretty certain all 3 of us were like, hallelujah, finally, let's do this. We were all super ready for it. We were all super stoked. And I think you two finished it. I think, Scott, you got the DLC and played through some of the DLC, or maybe all of it.
Only some. That's all I could do.
Let me tell you. So I think we can all agree. I wouldn't say it's the best anymore, the best gameplay anymore in the series, because that now is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. But at the time, it was definitely the best gameplay of the entire series. I didn't finish that game because I absolutely 100% hated the villains, the main villains in that game, the Calypso twins. They are awful. Gearbox, that was bad, and you should feel bad. They were awful. You could go ahead, because I'm gonna go off.
Yeah, so we always have to throw in our wrestling talk every podcast. So in the wrestling circle, there's what is known as X-Pac heat. So basically that term. So in wrestling, you have the good guys and you have the bad guys. If the bad guy's getting booed, he's doing a good job. He's doing his job. He's getting hate. He is fulfilling his purpose. Now, there is something that's called X-Pac heat, and that's when somebody is getting booed, but it's a very different type of boo. It's not, oh, I'm booing you because you're the bad guy, and even though I like you and, you're just doing your job, we're going to boo you, go along with the story. Now there's what's known as X-Pac heat of what's like, no, you're just badly written character. You're a terrible person. Like, we legitimately don't like you. Like, as a person, you're just horrible, and we're booing because of you're awful. And
You're bad at your job.
basically, and I think like what Mike just said, like, oh, we hated the Calypso trends, and you may be saying to yourself, like, well, that's the point. You're supposed to hate the bad guy. You're supposed to like want to kill them. There's a very fine line, not even that fine. It's a chasm,
For
actually.
these people, there's no fine line. They stepped over that line by like hundreds of feet.
Like we hated them not because like, oh look, they did all these horrible things. Oh yeah, no, they just were unappealing. You know, I'll leave it to Mike. But X-Pac heat. Want to know what that is? Calypso twins, right
Yes.
there.
And to kind of bring it, if we have any AEW fans here, something I recently within the last yep, Matt's got his hat on. Good job. I should have been wearing my FTR hat. Man, I'm dropping the ball here. But anyway, Scott and I went to wrestling shows a couple months ago, and John Moxley came out, and people in the crowd were booing him, and it wasn't the Scott in particular. Scott said some very colorful things, and there were children behind us.
Don't blame me, blame the parents.
Yep. But he's starting to get that heat, and it's bad. So John Moxley is approaching that, not anywhere near X-Pac, but he's getting there. He's making a name for himself. So that being said, they're awful, and they're awful for various reasons. So let me start with the writers were clearly trying to pander to a group, a generation of people to try to bring in a new group, when their fan base is not that group. And in fact, a lot of their fan base, I'd argue, is like the get off my lawn to that group, right? For better or for worse. Now, that's not to say, look, I am very accommodating to multiple generations. There are some things that just, I'm like, that's dumb. That doesn't make sense in my stupid brain, okay? But I feel like I'm very accommodating. As soon as words came out of their mouth in the game, I immediately just went, I just want to punch you. I just want you gone. Not because you're evil, not because you're doing your job. It's because I don't want you here. You suck. You're bringing my enjoyment level down of this game. And it's clear that they were just they didn't think it through. They were just trying to pander to a group, a generation, with the way that they talk, all of the lingo that they do. I'm talking like, oh, we're streamers. Yeah, whoa. And they're like throwing out like, I don't know if they actually, I don't even remember if they say this. This is how forgettable it is too, but like saying things like, dude, that's so poggers. Oh man, we're going to blow up the stream. I'm like, oh, this makes me not want to stream anymore. Like it makes me want to quit Twitch. I want to stop making content. It's awful because I was like, is this what people see me as? So that's the first problem. Then I thought, okay, well maybe they'll get jokes in there, right? Because that was a redeeming quality of Jack, right? Like he was awful. He was like 99% pure awful evil, but he was funny. And so then you just had to listen. So I thought maybe they're just making you hate them at first, and maybe eventually as I continue in the story, they'll get funny. Spoilers. They don't. They get worse. They get less funny. In fact, I remember hearing similar jokes, that not the same word for word, but similar style of jokes being used. And I thought, did the writers just not know? They're like, how do we make villains for the younger generation? And it was a bunch of like 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds in there. And they're like, talk about stream, talk about, the lingo, and let's just, these jokes, these memes that we found online. That was the Calypso twins. That was their writing. That was their jokes. That was their humor. That was their evilness. Awful. They were, correct me if I'm wrong, they weren't menacing at all. Jack, I think, Matt, you said it last episode, when he talked, you stopped. Or you were like, get out of here. I'm shoot somebody really quick. I need to listen to what's being said here. Because they were intimidating. They were, Jack was intimidating, menacing, had a presence. Don't you guys agree? They had no presence. I'd forget that they were there.
They were a very inconsistent group of villains, and I was actually excited for the premise of what they were supposed to be as villains. Like, oh, they're making fun of streamer culture. Or they're making fun of, I don't even know if TikTok was a big thing at that time, if I'm being honest, but they're essentially making fun of like the TikTok culture. And their whole gimmick was essentially they were live streamers to the bandits or all the psychopaths in the universe. But then they turned off the camera to be like, hey, this is just a show. We're really evil and just using them, which I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. Like you are a streamer and you're abusing your influence and you're kind of making fun of what a lot of younger people are into, which is always fun for me, even though I am one of them as far as one of my fun little trades that I do, which is, streaming. So I liked the potential. And that made it hurt even more with that setup. Like they're gonna make fun of what I do and what I enjoy. I'm here for it. I love satire and jokes like kind of at the expense. Like there's a difference between being mean and just like poking fun at like, yeah, that's a universal truth. This is a stereotype. Like stereotypes can be funny for things like that. But the delivery was just so bad and they as characters were just so inconsistent. And Mike, you might be prepared to talk about it. If not, I'll talk about it. But you could no, you didn't finish the game. You didn't finish the game. I need to talk about how them as actual boss fights was the most lazy, contrived bullcrap.
I
I'm
looked up
not
the
going to
boss
spoil
fight
it.
after you
Okay.
said it because I was like, I'm never going to go back and play. And
Yeah.
good Lord, I'm glad I didn't go back and play.
I won't spoil it. Scott, don't spoil it. I won't spoil it. Just know that it's just the laziest villain arc and it makes no sense whatsoever. None. They are awful villains. And my last thought on this one, before I give it back to Mike, and I'm sure Scott's got a few things, is one of the reasons Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel were so good is because they really had one key writer who basically wrote the whole thing. I'm sure there was supporting writers, but he got the writing credit. Anthony Birch. That is his name, Anthony Birch. You might actually recognize his sister more, Ashley Birch, who's the voice of Tiny Tina and the voice of Aloy in the Horizon series. She's also plays on-screen actor, an on-screen character on Mythic Quest on Apple TV, which is a pretty fun show. He crushed it. He's the one that brought all the charm to Handsome Jack. He's the one that brought all the charm to Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. So for them to go from that to whatever contrived bullcrap that they made with this character was just so insulting. Like I wasn't expecting Handsome Jack again. Sometimes you hit a peak, you're like, you're not going to hit it. That's fine. Hit a lesser
Give
note,
us
I'm still
something
here for it.
serviceable.
And they didn't. They didn't. Everything they did just made no sense. It was stupid. The boss fight sucked. Thankfully, the gameplay and graphically it was fun. Like gameplay was great, but Wonderlands is now better. But that's a game that I've tried to restart multiple times. Like Matt, don't even worry about the story. Just go haha pew pew, and just like I still can't. I still can't.
Because they still bless your ear holes with their awfulness. And it's
Yeah.
funny that
Well,
you mentioned that, by the way. That was literally my next point, was that they just, like, I understand they had big shoes to fill with Handsome Jack, and none of us expected that. We knew, like, that was probably the peak of their villainous, of their writing, right? We agreed. We just wanted a great game with serviceable bad guys, right? That's all we needed. Their dialogue is some of the most cringe garbage that, like, if I look back at Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, if I look at it technically, I'm like, yeah, that's like 5-year-old, 6-year-old humor. Okay? But they write it in a way that's very entertaining. It appeals to many different levels, different ages, and different types of gamers. At its core, yes, it is just little boy humor, okay? Let's just call it that. This game is little boy humor and nothing else. And I think the final thing to touch on your point that I want to talk about is the potential of this. I thought this could get up there. It wouldn't top Jack. It could get close to Jack because I love that satire too. I was heavy into streaming at the time, and I thought this could be good because there is a lot of streamer culture that I really legitimately dislike, and I think it's stupid. And I'm sure everybody thinks that in some way. And I thought this could be good. But it was like, this is how I'll wrap up with this, and I'll let Scott talk a little bit. You know the meme, Mom, I want to get that new Zelda game, but we already have Zelda at home, and then they show a picture of like Genshin Impact or something, right? That's
my niece loves, by the way. She is so into Genshin Impact.
yeah,
I
and that's
respect
actually
her,
not a knock.
honestly.
That's not a
It's
knock on
actually not a
Genshin
bad
Impact.
game. It's actually
Yeah,
not a bad game.
I'm just
but
saying,
sorry.
like,
I get your point.
It's not Zelda, right? It's not Zelda, and so that's like, that's these people, except so much worse. It's like the game doesn't even fit into the console that you're trying to play it on. You're trying to play an NES cartridge on a PlayStation 5, and it's Beetlejuice on the NES cartridge. It's like, they're so awful. And that's it. I could keep going. Scott, do you have anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, just to kind of hammer it home with what you guys were saying. I feel like the writing of the characters is a result of what you get when boomers try to go and write a story of what they think Zoomer streamers are. You know, maybe not actual boomers, maybe elder millennials like us, but like literally that's how I would have made a streaming villain character. Now, even though most of what I do is awesome, I will 100% admit that I don't know much about Zoomer streamer culture, and probably a good thing that I don't make games about where a villain is the Zoomer streamer. And I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. And one thing that was really, really disappointing to hear, originally when I heard about this, I got excited. And if they went through with this, the Calypso twins could have possibly went in a whole different direction. And that was, I forget her name, but at the time she was like a really, really big deal streamer. Maybe she still is. And they actually were working with her saying like, hey, do you want to go and voice one of the main villains for the Borderlands 3 game we're working on? And I don't know why it fell apart, but like she was working on the dialogue. She was going to write all the dialogue for her character. She was going to give input of like, oh yeah, this is how streamer culture is like. She from somebody who, get this, is actually a streamer who knows streamer culture, who knows how it works. And that was whoever came up with that idea, you deserve promotion. Whoever botched it and let it fall through, you deserve to get fired. And
that sounds wonderful. That sounds like it could have been great.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if they did that with her, they did. I only heard because she like gave some interview talking about it and was only talking about the female Calypso. But I mean, if they're doing that for her, I imagine they're also probably trying to find somebody big to voice her brother as well. So basically, originally the intention was to get two real streamers and have them voice the characters. Now, can you guys imagine everything we're saying right now? How that would be like, boop, like complete 180, you know.
That game would have blown up because there's people would have just jumped in and been like, I love this streamer, so I'm going to check this game out.
I'm more angry now.
Yeah, so just more reason to hate these. They're awful. They are. I would like to put them in F tier, but compared to my next group, my next group in the next episode, it just blows them away. That's how bad it is.
Let's redub this. There is F tier and WF tier. F tier stands for fart. WF, wet fart.
I think you just got the name of this episode. WTF tier. That's a good one, Scott.
I gotta write that down. Good job, Scott. That's the name of the episode. You're watching this. This is where we get it.
One stinks, but the other one stinks and also just leaves you like, yeah.
And that being said, let's take a minute. Let's cool off, and let's move on to our next horrible villain, Matt. Who do you have for us on this episode?
When I was telling you guys what I was going to talk about, I didn't tell you who. I just told you it was an Uncharted villain.
I think I know who it is.
Oh, you don't. Trust me.
Oh.
I like the Uncharted franchise. I do. 4 was a hit and miss for a lot of people. Graphically, it was beautiful. The combat, I thought, was very more locked in, but it lost a little bit of its charm. I enjoyed the franchise. I have played 1, 2, 3, 4, and the spinoff of 4, which was Lost Legacy, which actually I think was better than 4, if you ask mine and Mike's opinion as well. I told Scott and Mike going into this I was going to talk about an Uncharted villain. I lied. I'm going to talk about every Uncharted villain.
Okay.
I was like,
them. Ooh.
All of them from the main games and the spinoff. I hate them. I'm going to name the names of the villains. In the first game, there is Navarro and Gabriel Roman. Basically, a rich man wants treasure and power, but the final fight is actually that man's betrayer and the second-hand man who wants power. The second game, Zoran Lazarevich, a rich man who wants power. Third game, Catherine Marlowe, a rich lady, part of a secret society that wants, wait for it, power. Admittedly, she's probably the best of all the villains. Rafe Adler, Uncharted 4, a rich man who wants power. That is every freaking villain in Uncharted, and even the spinoff. The spinoff one, the villain was a little bit different. He wanted treasure to then use it to get money to make a bomb. Power. That is every single Uncharted villain. Every single Uncharted villain. And I hate these villains because they were all essentially the same, with all the same similar motivations. Now, I will say the caveat that most of these villains were portrayed very well from a voice acting standpoint, from a graphical like design standpoint. In particular, I really like the villain from Uncharted 3 for most of the game, but ultimately there wasn't really anything special there. Some of their evil monologues were pretty cool at times, but Uncharted is a very cinematic series, like it or hate that. And some of the delivery was really, really cool. But then the boss fights for these games were not good. I love the Uncharted franchise, but every single final boss fight is just bland or weird or non-existent. In Uncharted 1, you roll into cover and just try not to get one shot by a guy with a sniper. Uncharted 2, you just run in a circle. That's how you beat the boss. You just run in a circle. Uncharted 3, there isn't really a boss fight. Uncharted 4, it's a cinematic knife fight. Most of these villains had well delivered voice work, as I said. They look really cool, but they essentially become a grunt for a game that really builds up these moments just to end with you running in a circle. It is an undelivered motivation, it is an undelivered boss fight. I hate the Uncharted villains. They had great voice work. Some of them look cool. Some of them had some like nice manipulative, haha, I'm ahead of you moments. I like that in a villain. But when it comes to the end of their ultimate motivation, they're all the same. And the boss fights suck. There are so many cool set pieces on Uncharted, so many cool things that you do. Mike, I guarantee you're thinking of them right now. So many cool set pieces. Scott never played it, so I don't care. But there are so many cool things in the Uncharted game to have a boss fight that's just like, bleh, super disappointing to me. So the Uncharted main villains, because they actually had some pretty cool side villains, and one of which actually is a big deal in Lost Legacy, which I think that is my favorite Uncharted. The villains are lackluster. They are a big disappointment to me. They are not good. Scott won't have an opinion, but Mike, what do you think of the Uncharted villains?
So, two things. The first thing, just for you, Scott, and I guess for listeners who have not played them, think of if Indiana Jones, if the bad guy every single time were the Nazis. And not just the Nazis cooking up some new cockamamie scheme, just the same scheme and almost the same looking Nazis. That's what these bosses are, honestly. And you hit home. They're one note. There's nothing else to them. And I think what accentuates that so much more is because the other dialogue in the game, as much as I hated my recent playthrough of Uncharted 4, and less so, but still not thrilled with Lost Legacy, the dialogue in all the rest of the game, in every other aspect of the game, the cutscenes, everything is really good. Anything with the bosses is just the same thing every time. And that secondary boss you talked about that's kind of a big deal in Lost Legacy, from Uncharted 4 to Lost Legacy, she was so much better as a villain in 4. I liked her so much better.
Same.
And like, there's go figure, there's actually character development. So that's what happened. Wow. And I'm gonna throw a little shit. I'm gonna really piss people off here. I recently replayed Uncharted 4. I say recently, this was like last year sometime. I replayed them again, and I did not like them. I didn't enjoy them. I got into Naughty Dog with the Jack and Daxter series. I love Jack and Daxter. I'm afraid to go back and play those games because I feel like they're going to be garbage. Hot take time. You ready? It's going to get a lot of people pissed off. I'm starting to think the only Naughty Dog game that I really enjoyed that I thought was good was The Last of Us. Not part 2. Just 1. So, I'll back off. Scott, do you have thoughts on this game that you know nothing about?
Yes, I have very strong thoughts and opinions about this. Honestly, the only one I have is based off Matt's description of the villain in each game. It kind of sounded like Elon Musk was like the bad guy in each one. It even had like weird names too.
You just
like,
gave away.
Elon
Thanks
Musk
for
has
spoiling for
thing.
everybody. Thanks for
Elon
spoiling.
Musk is going to be Uncharted 5. He is the villain.
The game ends on Mars. That's his whole plan. He goes and ends up, building
It's
a rocket
Uncharted.
to Mars that you jump on.
He makes a giant Doge robot that Nathan Drake has to climb and fight. He uncovers a weird Doge like artifact in Mars. How long has it been here?
The whole episode, like the game starts that Nathan goes on Twitter and he's just putting on like, LOL, Elon Musk sucks. And then he's like, what? I'm going to go and ban you from Twitter now. And that's like the instigator of it.
And then he's gonna hire the Calypso twins to egg him on to bring him to Pandora.
And then instead of Sully, that he calls in to help him with the Callisto whatever.
You can't even say their
You can
name
do it.
right.
You
They're
can
that
do it,
awful.
Matt. You can do it. You can do it.
Nope. They're gonna call in Bauer Tendo. You are the new Sully. Get a cigar. Say his catchphrase.
Just gotta
I'll be
grab
go
my
to
beard.
hell.
Grab my beard. I'm good. Well, that part sounds wonderful. The rest of it sounds awful. Good pick, and that's deserved. That's completely deserved. So, what are you gonna do, Scott? What do you have for us?
So I'm going to be 100% honest. I really struggled with this week's topic. I literally spent more time today at work thinking about the topic than actually working. So it's a good thing that none of my employees actually watch this podcast.
Priorities.
Right? Priorities. So I'm going to be a little bit light on mine. But I know all of you out there love Scott's honorable mention. So I do have an honorable mention for you. The only reason I didn't actually pick him as one of my choices is I'm kind of basing some of my hate of him from his comic and cartoon appearances as well. And that is Kang. I don't know what the rest of his name is. If he has basically the floating pink brain from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Krang.
It's Krang? See,
Krang, right?
Krang or Kang or what?
I'm pretty
Help me
certain
out
it's
here.
Krang. Hold on.
He's a stupid looking brain. That's just. If you've seen the dumb looking brain, that's him.
Brain bad guy. Turtles.
This was a very, very ill prepared special.
Yeah, it's Krang.
mention.
Krang. I thought it was
Krang.
Krang.
So still counts. He's in Turtles in Time as well as Shredder's Revenge, even though he's not the main final boss. But in the lore, he's the Shredder's boss. So it never really made sense that he wasn't the final boss. And my big thing of him is he's a joke. Like, one of my big things about villains is there has to be the intimidation factor. Either like, oh, this guy looks gnarly. It looks like he can go and like snap me, with a little swat of his finger. Or like, this guy is powerful. He has all the money in the world. And he can crush me like a bug. Krang is a floating brain. And because nobody took him serious looking like a goober brain, he goes and puts himself in a goober robot body. And it is ridiculous. And you know what? That's all I have to say about that. It's just an honorable mention. I hate Krang.
We have to throw in a Rushings mention here because we have to do that every episode, right? Look at his robot and tell me you're not thinking of Tim. And now you can't unsee what I just told you.
I'm gonna be honest. When you said that you're gonna do like a Rushing reference, I was like, how are you gonna tie in the Rushings with the O? Well, is he gonna say that the robot looks like Tim? Because I could see it, so it actually popped in my mind before you even got.
The
to
more
it.
you're gonna look up Matt, I see Matt. It's knocking around in his noggin, and he's gonna look up pictures again. He's gonna go, "Oh no, I can't unsee this."
He has a similar build. He doesn't look like him, but like the build is very similar. Yes.
Anyway,
So
that's the Rushing mention. Okay, go Scott.
There we go. We got the Rushing mention and the honorable mention out of the way. We're only like a half an hour into this, so we're doing good today. All right. So my first choice, and it's a little bit topical because Sony, at least for us, they just did their big not E3, but really E3 showcase. And the big game they talked about from that is Spider-Man 2. So I want to talk about the villain from Spider-Man 1. And I'm not talking about Doc Ock, which actually was a very well-written villain, and I absolutely loved him in the game. And I'm not even talking about Negative Man, which everybody makes fun of Negative Man and how much of a B-list villain he is. But I actually thought he had pretty good writing, and it was a little bit. Sorry, spoiler time. Skip over 15 seconds if you don't want to know spoilers for Spider-Man 1. I thought I was a little bit disappointed that they dropped him from being the main villain, which again, granted, Doc Ock worked really good as the main villain as well, but I felt they did a pretty good job building up Negative Man. They kind of dropped that. No, the main villain I'm going to talk about is actually the main villain from the Spider-Man DLC, and maybe Mike can jump in and help me out with this, but I believe there's a total of like 3 DLC episodes, and I think it was called the City That Never Sleeps Saga or something to that effect.
Something like that, yeah.
And so basically each DLC episode, all the DLCs, they connected to each other, and they basically were one part of a, ongoing, to be continued DLC story. The main bad guy of this DLC story is the famous, the super beloved, the greatest villain in all Spider-Man lore. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about Hammerhead. And you may be asking yourself, like, who the fuck is Hammerhead? I'll tell you who Hammerhead is. You think Venom's cool? The symbiote black ooze thing that can transform into anything? Nah, forget about it. You think Green Goblin is cool with his glider and his evil pumpkin bombs and blowing up shit? No. You know what's a cool villain? All right, follow me. He's a mobster. And his head's made of iron. The end. Like, how is his head made of iron? I don't know. Maybe his mom was adventurous and his dad was a steel girder. I don't know how it happened. Maybe Mike can jump in and go and explain it. But again, so I'm being a little unfair as well. I was a huge fan of the Spider-Man TV show from the 90s. Loved it. Watched it religiously. And maybe they just did a really bad job of representing Hammerhead in that TV show. But the interpretation I got of Hammerhead is he was just basically a dumb goon. He was a mobster, and a dumb mobster, hence his head being just metal and no brain in there. He was a joke. So somehow, Insomniac, is that the studio?
Yeah.
It's Insomniac, right? And their infinite wisdom, they're like, let's go and pick a villain for the DLC, an actual Spider-Man villain. All right, do we use Venom? Nope, holding him off for the sequel. Do we go and use Prowler? Nope, for Miles Morales. All right, what C-level Spider-Man villains do we have? All right, we either have the Spot or Hammerhead. Well, guess it's going to be Hammerhead this time. Not only did they go and pick perhaps the lamest C-level villain from the Spider-Man franchise, they actually make him a genius in the DLC. They make him conniving. He's basically Frank Fontaine. Again, their call out to a previous episode we've done. But in the Spider-Man universe, which makes no sense that they made a low-level, dumb joke villain into now a criminal mastermind who is running all of the gangs in New York. Now, the really funny thing is, I think Insomniac actually got to the point where they realized how bad of a choice they made with their villain. Because in the second game, again, spoilers, fast forward if you really don't want to know, but spoilers, I feel like the DLC is hot garbage and you're not missing much anyway. They decide, like, you know what? We're just going to have Hammerhead turn himself into a cyborg killing machine robot. Yeah, let's just do that. So they basically didn't even believe in their own villain that they picked. They could have picked any villain they wanted to go the whole, like, oh, I'm going to make myself a robot and make myself better than everybody else approach. It was lazy. It was poorly written. As bad as a character as Hammerhead was, they didn't even have Hammerhead at the end of that game. It was just some weird-ass thing on its own. He was a terrible villain. Honestly, next to the Calypsos, this kind of almost got up there to the level of like, oh my god, I just want to finish this DLC and beat Hammerhead. Not because I hate this guy or want to beat the DLC, just so I'm over it. Because I know once I do the final fight with him, I don't have to see any more cutscenes with him. I don't have to hear this guy talk ever again. I'm sure as hell not going to play this hot piece of garbage DLC again. I can be done. I can be free of this. Infuriating. One of my most hated villains ever. All right, guys, do you have any hot takes on Hammerhead, even though he was only a DLC boss, he was the boss of the DLC arc. So I say it still counts.
I'll let you go first, Matt, since I'm the spider fan here, and I played it all. Did you play that far?
I didn't play the DLC, but I very much know the character. One, yes, for the 90s cartoons, which, those are rad. Fun fact on that, that was the very first show I ever watched that had a to be continued episode. So at that time, I was used to everything I watched as a kid to just be like one and done. So when it hit a to be continued, I was like, what? And it blew my mind that something like that could exist. So, anywho, there's a random story no one asked for. But I've also read back in the day a decent amount of comics, and there was a Deadpool comic that I was reading, and he did an arc with Hammerhead as the villain. And Hammerhead also can like eat anything, if I recall. Like he has these teeth that just chomp through like anything.
And how were
And he
those? How was that arc, Matt?
it was
How,
actually really cool. Can you
it was,
imagine
wasn't it?
Deadpool and Hammerhead in an arc together? Where Hammerhead is this gangster who feeds his enemies to pigs. Legit. He would just throw his enemies into the pigs. And I think at one point Deadpool got tossed in. He ripped off his arm and said, "Eat this arm," and then he ran out the door because that's what Deadpool does. It was great. It was super cool. So when I heard that he was going to be a villain, I was like, rad. But then I heard about the DLC and how lackluster it was. I'm like, all right, I don't care anymore. That's all I have to say is that Hammerhead was cool to me in the 90s. He was cool to me in the Deadpool arc that I read and what other random comics he was in. But this DLC just sounded super lackluster and kind of inconsistent with who he was. So that's my bit.
So I'll be quick here. I actually like Hammerhead. Being a Spider-Man fan, I've got my own rankings of the villains and all that stuff. I got really excited when I was like, oh, he's gonna be the DLC, and I imagined him being like that Deadpool arc because I actually read that arc. And you know what they turned him into, and you'll relate to this. Did you watch? I believe it was Darkwing Duck. I'm trying to remember who the character showed up in. I think it was Darkwing Duck. There was that giant rooster that had a metal beak.
Steelbeak.
Steelbeak.
I think his name was Steelbeak.
That's
Creative
what they
name.
turned him into. Which that works for Darkwing Duck, not for Spider-Man. And when I saw, but then also like Scott said, they tried to like make him a mastermind at the same time, like he's dumb but smart, and it was like, what? Just make him bad. I was expecting just like a pure, basically like Carnage, but like didn't lose control, right? Like just like what I was thinking of the Deadpool arc. Like you're just a bad dude, and you're like, I don't like you. Feed him to the fish, feed him to the pigs, feed him to what? Like that's who he was. I thought that'd be cool. Just a brute force, kill you, take no shit from you, and they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Kind of going back to my thing, it just felt like they could have picked any C-list Spider-Man villain. They really didn't care who they picked. They just like, we want to have a villain who eventually becomes a robot. All right, who's the most expendable person in the Spider-Man villain gallery that we could do that to? And again, like, I'll be the first to admit, like, I'm basing my Hammerhead knowledge off the cartoon. Was he cool in this Deadpool arc? Probably. I think you can go and make any villain, any hero cool with the right character or the right, writers, the right creative team behind it. But even if he was cool, he definitely was not cool in the DLC. He was, I'll give him an F. He was a fart. He wasn't quite wet fart, but definitely F level.
Okay, I like that. That's great. All right, well, there's our WTF tier villains. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying this long with us. Who are your WF tier, whatever we want to call this? Let's say the WTF tier. The WTF tier. Who are your WTF tier villains that you've played, your game villains? Let us know in the comments if you're watching. If you're listening, you should go over to the YouTube channel and you should subscribe. And you should go leave us comments. And you should, yell at us about how wrong we are, because that would be great. We would love to yell back at you. Let's just have a yelling contest on YouTube. As always, you can catch us streaming and various social things going on. So we got Celiac_Matt, Scott, SM Stevens streams. I think you can go follow him now and then wait for him to eventually go live with this next Fortnite stream. And Bauer Tendo here. So you can catch us on all of us on Twitch and all over the place. As always, we appreciate you. You're the best. You're awesome. Tell your friends about us because you love us and we love you. And yeah, so until next time, bye.